Bienvenidos al Salón Mark Twain. Soy Elizabeth Meza, la consejera de Asuntos Públicos de la Embajada de los Estados Unidos. Estamos súper contentos de ser el país invitado este año y tenemos muchas actividades para compartir con ustedes. Ahora les presento a Margarita González, quien nos inspira con su carisma y creatividad. Disfruten la Feria del Libro.
Margarita, te voy a contar un cuento. Solía decirle su abuelo Paco el Paisa a orillas del mar en Panamá Viejo, antes de recitarle una poesía, y de historias se llenó la cabeza de Margarita. Ganó un concurso de cuentos en secundaria y se matriculó en periodismo al graduarse. A Margarita le preocupaba lo poco informadas que estaban las mujeres de su barrio, y aunque escribía para un diario, pensó que para llegar a ellas debía estar en radio o en televisión, y a otro medio migró. Después de 20 años de carrera profesional, cuando llegó la transformación digital, a Margarita le empezó a preocupar la terrible desinformación y los fake news. Así que se lanzó a crear su propio medio digital, que se expandió a un canal de YouTube y muchos podcasts. Una subvención en innovación ofrecida por la Embajada de los Estados Unidos le permitió llevar educación mediática a mujeres en situación desfavorecida, y sedienta de capacitación y afianzamiento, ingresa a la Academia para Mujeres Emprendedoras AWE, y así afinó su audiencia, llevando educación y empoderamiento a más mujeres panameñas.
Muy buenas tardes, bienvenidos a la Feria Internacional del Libro de Panamá 2021. Nos encontramos en el Salón Mark Twain y en breves minutos dará inicio la actividad Open Mic, la poesía, palabra hablada por Carl Iglesias y sus moderadoras Catherine Chan y Julia Fong. Esta actividad tendrá una duración alrededor de 90 minutos y se estará transmitiendo en vivo por el canal de YouTube de la Cámara Panameña del Libro. Le recordamos a todos que los mensajes, micrófonos y videos estarán deshabilitados y se activarán por parte del equipo técnico cuando sea necesario. La interacción con los panelistas y moderadores solo se podrá hacer a través del apartado de preguntas y respuestas, el cual se encuentra en la parte inferior de las opciones de la sala. Sin más, cedemos la palabra a las moderadoras de la actividad. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Isabel. Bienvenido, Carl. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, ¿y usted?
Muy bien. Bueno, bienvenidos a la audiencia también y a mi colega Catherine Chan. Hoy vamos a dar inicio, pero antes de empezar, Carl, voy a dar una breve introducción para que conozcan un poco más de ti. Carl Iglesias es un poeta, actor, director y artista, docente originario de Milwaukee, pero ha establecido un hogar en Brooklyn, New York. Como maestro de ceremonias, también conocido como Oye, ha compartido escenario con Anderson .Paak, Mac Miller, Chance the Rapper, Will and Kendrick Lamar. Por nombrar algunos, graduado de la Universidad de Wisconsin, ha continuado su exploración del verso como parte del taller Bars in Public, Teatro de Nueva York, donde los escritores e intérpretes desarrollan nuevos versos para el escenario. Su poesía ha aparecido en festivales como Brave New Voices, Union Party Slam Invitational, Hip Hop Theater, Festival de Nueva York y Contacting the World Theater Festival. En Manchester, Inglaterra, su poesía también se puede leer en Apogee, Words Dance Publishing, The Acentus Review y el próximo número de Florida Review. Carl también es orgulloso miembro de Actor Equity Association. Bueno, Carl, eso es todo para la introducción de tu parte. La palabra es tuya.
Gracias. Y gracias a todos que están aquí ahora, especialmente Evelio y Jacqueline. Ustedes especialmente. Si pueden, vamos a usar el chat un poquito durante este Open Mic. Y si solamente son los dos, si pueden decirme qué son sus experiencias con inglés y si entienden inglés mejor que español o español más que inglés. si quiere escribir eso en el chat, eso puede ayudarme un poco. Pero bienvenidos a nuestro Open Mic. Me llamo Carl Michael Iglesias y voy a ser su presentador esta tarde, your MC for the evening, as we would say back in the States. Like Julia said, soy un poeta, actor y director aquí en Brooklyn, Nueva York, y estoy feliz de estar aquí. Esta noche vamos a celebrar la poesía y los talentos de nuestra comunidad. Si quiere inscribirse en el sign-up list para recitar una poesía, un rap o cantar una canción, puede poner su nombre en el chat y pronto nos comunicaremos con usted y puede hacer eso. Para cualquier que nunca haya estado en un open mic, tengo un poco de consejos. Mantén tu micrófono en silencio. Cuando va a leer o recitar su poema, empieza con su nombre y qué arte va a recitar. Cuando termines, di gracias y vamos a estar claro que terminaste. Y para la audiencia, después de la poema, apoya. Formas de apoyar al artista puede ser con emojis y también puede escribir cosas positivas en el chat. Si creamos esta cultura en nuestra comunidad, todos estaremos mejor. Antes que la primera artista venga al micrófono, y a lo mejor no va a estar otra artista que va a hacer en el micrófono, eso es, that's okay too. Quiero leer una poesía primero para cantar el espacio un poquito y alguien puede tener como el bravery para to share their work, with everybody else as well. Y regreso a leer en nuestro open mic cuando termina también. Escribí mi primer libro de poesía que se llama Catch a Glow sobre los eventos alrededor de Huracán María en Puerto Rico. Hay poemas que son creados usando entrevistas del noticiero y otros son del punto de vista de diferentes dioses taínos y los sobrevivientes del huracán y también de los muertos. Este poema se llama Ofrenda y es en inglés y se trata de una comunidad en Puerto Rico que se une en torno a un generador de electricidad durante el apagón. Ofrenda. Gracias. Joselito has a generator that his son sent him from Florida. He has been using it to power the floodlight down the road every evening since Dia de los Reyes, offering our barrio a makeshift lamppost, Gajay's North Star. I take a little shine from our neo moon to inspect how my calloused fingers translate chords. My hamaca offers the usual waltz. I offer Pitorro de Quenepa to Evelyn and her husband next door, but they never accept. She offers una tacita tibia, and how could I say no? I offer my cuatro, cup of humming sugar. My quickened bones croon a bolero out. The night is warm brick of chocolate surrendering to simmered milk. Sweet blood. I offer tune to relentless mosquitoes baiting the bats. They offer salsa, offer clashing shadows and their best smile, swift wings, a striking turn of page, and I could barely read the notes off my crinkled hymnal, but if I angle it just right, I can catch a glow over my shoulder, and I play on. Coquis whistled by the thousands, offer to fill the air with a call and response, a coro pregón of burning candles on porches, listening constantly. Joselito Keens, that his son is not coming back, but should hear from him soon. Thank you. Thank you. Si está interesado en inscribirse en el sign up del Open Mic, para los 3 personas que están aquí, Hector, Robert y Jacqueline, si quiere compartir con nosotros algo que tiene, si puede ser una poema de alguien diferente, que te gusta también, puede leer eso también, y compartimos como un grupo pequeño, ¿ok? Pero until then, voy a leer otro poema de mi libro Catch a Glow. ¿Okay? Y se llama Half of the Parrots Disappeared. Half of the parrots disappeared. Near the south end of the viaduct, the tropical forest, I stand with the pummeled mountain of 24 kids from the neighborhood. A couple of turquoise-tipped wings, sunshine from crashing, passion fruit without canopy. I want laws that shake. Hands. I am of the shaken, the ones who recover through gardening, camouflage, a fledgling coalition of churches headquartered at the end. I go in more resistant to hurricanes, and I only face hurricanes. Topple the nest after I break through the shell, my vital recovery for the species, re-handful the dirt, get another flock reintroduced wild. I boycotted grapes up when the march cut through 6th Street. Now return with Southside English, because you can't turn the D's, does, that off, or not want to send all the money you make back to your family. Blessings. And while we wait for people to arrive, I'll read another poem, okay? Thank you for everybody who's here and spending the time listening to my work. I appreciate you. This next poem is from Catch a Glow. It's called Open for Business. Timbales calling from the lobby at the San Juan Marriott Resort and Casino, which was finally packed with fanning tourists and not just emergency workers, checking in, air-conditioned, skin-peeling saviors spends on sites. Mountain communities are still desperate for power, supplies, damaged resorts, attention. Hotels are back up and running. Industry is critical. Long-term recovery here. It's like the storm came through yesterday, said the mountains of Yabakua, along with their children, been relying on a generator to survive. We need help. Another night in limbo, spent on the porch in the dark. Thank you. Gracias. Gracias. Hay espacio en nuestro open mic, mucho espacio, demasiado de espacio. Puede ser, si quieren leer algo, puede ser algo corto, si no tienen una poema, puede ser un verso de la Biblia, ¿ok? Cualquier cosa que tiene, si quieren leer algo conmigo, esto puede ser más divertido para nosotros. ¿Ok? Sí, estamos en comunidad con nosotros, ¿ok? A cualquier cosa que quiere leer, si quiere leer la atrás de botella de Windex, si quiere leer eso, puede leer eso también. Cualquier cosa que quiere decir a leer, ¿ok? Sí, pueden leer que quieren. Sí. Si quieren leer una poema de una poeta que se murió, que está vivo, pero no está aquí, puede leer eso también si quiere. Puede leer eso también. Okay. Pues sigo con mis poemas por ahora. Este poema que voy a leer se llama Left the Hotel That FEMA Was Paying For on Friday. Y se trata de una familia desplazada y que se quedará sin hogar este día. Left the hotel that FEMA stopped paying for on Friday. Ended up at a shelter after action, making the president look bad. Hibiscus yawns on a once road baked in clay. Cabo Rojo to Brooklyn. Trickle of feet is dew drip. First morning of homelessness, making the president look bad. My family is everywhere. Daliana and her son FaceTiming Theo Cruz. Sol, our grand marshal, cries in Spanish in the wake, making the president look bad, and a warning by the unsung. Agency in the parade, in a hotel lobby by the airport. There is nowhere to warm, churn, a family laugh. There ain't goodwill for evicted psalms pinned, making the president look bad. Blue birds saying everything they heard from someone else, rent late, displaced on the balls of feet. Trauma for thunder. Bruno lying on asphalt. Emergency lane, making the president look bad. Rest in the blanket of sirens in the Atlantic Ocean ruins. Making the president look bad. And they built their beacon, caused the brick tower to deteriorate, and they lit a donation and welcomed the street light. And ain't it hard just to live? Thank you. Thank you. Gracias. Ok, tenemos a alguien que quiere leer. Y, ok, y si podemos, apoyamos a Robert a leer una poesía, ok. Robert, puedes, you can hop off mute. Or if we can spotlight him. Or them.
Hello, Carl. Hola a todos. Vamos a habilitar el micrófono de Robert. Robert, danos un minuto nada más.
Robert. Okay.
Un minuto más, Robert. Están haciendo el proceso para habilitarte el micrófono. Ok, bueno, entonces, Carl, yo creo que yo voy a participar y yo quiero leer una poesía que me gusta mucho de Isabel Ulloeca. Ella es una poeta panameña que escribe un poema sobre la pollera. Así que si me permites, y la audiencia, mientras le dan el acceso a Robert, voy a leer la poesía. Espero hacerlo bien. ¿O ya le dieron acceso?
Buenas, buenas. Sí. Sí.
Dale, Robert, todos estamos oyentes de ti.
Ok, muy buenas. Buenas noches a todos. Buenas tardes a todos, mejor dicho. ¿Cómo están? Let me introduce myself. Mi nombre es Robert Goodrich, poeta y escritor panameño. Voy a leerles un poema de uno de mis libros que se llama Niño que caminas. El poema tiene un epígrafe de un poeta panameño que dice: el sueño empieza a declinar en la medialuna del misterio. Es de Manuel Orestes Nieto, el epígrafe. Niño que caminas llenos de sueño, que deambulas por las calles y juegas. Niño que con tu inocencia conquistas corazones y con tu sonrisa iluminas las vidas. Niño que caminas lleno de sueños e ilusiones, sin angustias o tristezas. Niño que caminas por los campos y ciudades y te diviertes sanamente y sin prisa. Niño que conoces el mundo de a poquito, con tu inocencia y picardía. Niño que eres ajeno a todos los problemas del mundo y que juegas con la libertad de un sueño. Niño precioso, nunca pierdas tu sonrisa ni el brillo de tus ojos. Pequeño niño hermoso que caminas lleno de sueños en este mundo sin fin y sin tiempo. Ese poema pertenece a mi libro Territorios Extraños, Fantasmas de un Poeta. I hope you like it.
So absolutely, thank you. Show some love in the chat if you can hear my voice. Y si me puede oír, dame un poquito de apoyo en el chat, algo como así, los emojis, algo así. Gracias por leer eso. Bravo, un poema bello. Gracias. Fue una línea que se fue como con una sonrisa y lume, algo así, Robert, fue la línea.
¿Qué línea no se escuchó?
En la poema, con su sonrisa y lume, fue la palabra, ¿verdad?
El niño que con su sonrisa ilumina, sí.
Ilumina. Eso fue algo que me escuché.
Gracias.
Bueno, buenísimo, gracias. Y también Julia, God bless her soul, tiene un poema también para compartir con nosotros. ¿Eso es verdad, Julia?
Así es, voy a leerles un poema que me gusta mucho que se llama Mi pollera por Ana Isabel Ulloeca. Voy a creo que voy a leerles los versos más favoritos, mi favorito de esta poesía. Espero hacerlo bien. No recuerdo cuándo fue la última vez que recité una poesía. Así que con el permiso de los maestros aquí. No me pidas ni sedas ni gasas para ornar esta noche en mi talle. Noche de carnaval. ¿Qué panameña reemplaza su pollera por un traje? Mi pollera, tú sabes, yo la hice con delgados alones, donde el encaje a punto de mundillo una abuela tejió con manos hábiles. Y luego de los arrullos de la tarde, con la aguja enjambrada, en tonos suaves marcamos en la blusa y en la enagua las hojas y la flor de los manizales. Tú no sabes la gracia que ella pone cuando ciñe mi talle, ni el rubor que se siente en la espalda al roce del encaje, que recogen los hilos de la lana en bombas circulares. Ni has visto mis zapatos, estuchito de raso que cobijan mis pies chicos y ágiles, cual los de las mujeres tropicales. Gracias.
Qué bueno, aplauso. Qué bueno. Apoya. Thank you for sharing that beautiful poem. And very well read too. Yeah. Very well read. Gracias. ¿Alguien más quiere compartir con nosotros una poema si tiene? Una cancioncito si puede cantar. Y si no, tengo una poema más para ustedes y quiero hacer gracias a todos también. Pero este último poema se llama Eulogy for a Mango Tree y se trata de un periodista que regresa a Puerto Rico para descubrir que perdió su árbol de mango. Pero también es un poema para mi abuela que no está aquí. Gracias. Eulogy for a Mango Tree. I'm still the boy in the navy shorts, running around you with my shirt wrapped around my head, lifting a fallen branch, now a leaf sword. We whisper a breeze I could barely hear, and I nod as if I understand. Did you think less of me when home was a spiraled gust and I returned to the thunder of my birth? Fist rushing into wall, hiding violently. Some secrets sound like boiling salt water, don't they? Carved my name into you with a parrot's claw. You were there. I fell asleep outside my door on Cobble Road. Did you whisper our stories to the horses in summer? On the darkest nights, when I stumble home a puddle of myself, why didn't you just drink me? God, lift you, wake me up with sweet prayers as if to not embarrass me. What other people have you offered refuge in your shadows? What other faces have you saved? You understood that the stars don't need to see everything. So when the sky arrived, masked as a bursting mango, I'd share a cafecito with you. Scoff in your bark. You thought I'd never see the day. I'd like my coffee without cream. It's my secret. It's everlasting life. What's yours? Tell me. Tell me. Thank you. I appreciate everyone in here for giving me the time and for listening to my poems. They mean a lot to me. Quiero anunciar que todos están invitados a acompañarme este sábado para nuestro taller de poesía a las 11 de la mañana para escribir más poesía y aprender un poco más de la poesía también. Gracias a todos los que leyeron y apoyaron a nuestro Open Mic. Y nuevamente mi nombre es Carl Michael Iglesias. Y también puede comprar mi libro aquí. Y también you can follow me. Me pueden seguirme en Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Allí en Oye414, OYE414, if you want to keep up to date with me. Or if you would like to bring some of the poems home, the link to purchase the book is right there. Catch a Glow on Finishing Line Press.
Gracias, Carl. Bueno, yo soy Catherine de la Embajada y yo pues realmente no escribo poemas desde hace muchos años, pero hay un poema que he encontrado hace unos días y me dejó mucho pensando y pues voy a recitarlo. Este es un poema original, no es mío, pero comienza así. ¿Con qué he de irme? Nada dejaré en pos de sobre la tierra. ¿Cómo ha de actuar mi corazón? ¿Acaso en vano venimos a vivir, a brotar sobre la tierra? Dejemos al menos flores, dejemos al menos cantos. Y este poema, por más corto que sea, me dejó reflexionando, pues porque estábamos haciendo muchos trabajos sobre el tema del mes de la tierra y estábamos hablando de qué le dejamos nosotros o cómo retribuimos nosotros a la tierra. Y me parece muy, muy bonito, pues porque eso quiere decir que no debemos dejar que nuestra vida pase sin haber dejado algo de valor para los demás o algo para nuestro entorno, o sea, no solamente para nuestra familia o amigos, sino también pues para toda nuestra comunidad. Y esto nos hace sentir que cada uno de nosotros nace para dejar algún legado. Y esto básicamente se remonta mucho a lo que tú estás haciendo, como escribir poesía, porque esto no solamente lo leímos hoy y va a quedar aquí en este panel, sino que aquellos que adquieren tu libro o que pueden seguirte en redes sociales, pues esto va a estar permanente y puede uno leerlo, puede uno identificarse. Y yo creo que muchos de nuestros poemas nos ayudan a reflexionar de la vida, de la muerte. Esto es como una conclusión que nuestro paso por el mundo no se puede reducir como a vivir un breve periodo, sino que no podemos morir sin dejar nada, sin haber dejado como una pequeña huella durante este tiempo, y es lo que se plasma a través de la poesía, y me ha gustado muchísimo tu participación, de verdad.
Gracias. Pues Julia, ¿qué quiere hacer?
Yo quisiera invitar a Clement, a Jacqueline, a que dejen la pena y que de repente saquen ese poeta que tienen dentro, si han escrito algo que nunca lo han compartido antes. Yo creo que esta es la audiencia perfecta para compartir eso que han escrito y que quieren compartirlo. Y nada, que somos todos oídos, Carl. Estamos ansiosos. Yo quisiera de repente compartir otro poema, pero yo voy a darle chance a las audiencias que compartan lo que ellos tienen.
Sí.
O Robert, esto no es de que una vez y ya, tú puedes volver a participar si gustas. Perfecto. Ahí vemos que Robert va a deleitarnos otra vez. Adelante, Robert.
Buenas, de nuevo. Gracias por la oportunidad. Voy a leerles otro poema, 2 años que ya no regresan. Se llama el poema, pertenece a otro de mis libros, A hombres y mujeres sabios. El poema cita así, tiene un epígrafe de Charles Baudelaire. Yo amo el recuerdo de las desnudas edades cuando doraba el sol de las marmotas deidades. Los años que ya no regresan, esos que vivimos junto a aquellos que han partido, esos que vivimos siendo muy jóvenes, siendo muy niños. La sabiduría que nos envuelve hoy en día como parte de la experiencia vivida, a través de la dureza vivida en estos años que ya nos han consumido. Hombres, mujeres, ancianos, aborígenes, extranjeros, nacionales, sin importar de dónde seamos, todos hemos vivido, todos hemos aprendido, todos somos sabios de la vida. Los años que ya no regresan, esos que siempre extrañaremos, pero que nos han hecho más sabios.
Pues, gracias por eso. Robert, esos son sus poemas, su poesía.
Sí, son poemas míos, de mi autoría.
Gracias por compartir con nosotros. Gracias.
Robert, y si me permites, y Carl también, creo que el poema, además de ser hermoso, siento como que nos llama, es un llamado de atención, ¿sabes? Como que este es el momento, esta es la hora de hacer las cosas.
Exactamente.
Sí.
Gracias.
Gracias, Robert. Y también si alguien tiene preguntas sobre la cosa de poesía o de mí algo, podemos hablar de eso también. O si sí, Robert, si quiere compartirlo con nosotros aquí en el chat. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with our community.
Carl, quizás puedas contarnos un poco de cómo nació este amor por la poesía, o por qué decidiste tomar esta carrera y dedicarte de lleno, ¿no? De repente eso es muy interesante que la audiencia lo sepa.
Sí. But forgive me, I did an interview earlier and I realized that coming up with my own thoughts in the moment in Spanish is not quite as easy than when I can prepare for it or whatever. So bear with me a little bit. Pero I think empezó con mi amor por hip hop, la música de hip hop y la cultura de hip hop que los puertorriqueños fueron ahí cuando se nací en Puerto Rico, nació el hip hop. Y la poesía que tuve adentro de eso, como de Jay-Z, de Kanye, de Mos Def, estos raperos, they got me interested en la poesía que estuve aprendiendo en la escuela, como Shakespeare y Margaret Atwood y estos poetas que están enseñándonos los raperos como they got me interested, you know, como me dan como musa, you know, muse, like inspiration to do it, you know. Esos son mis poetas primeros, you know. That answer your question?
Sí, claro que sí. Si alguien más tiene una pregunta para acá con respecto a su carrera artística, adelante. Pueden dejarlo en el chat o también pueden pedir que le habilitemos el micrófono y con mucho gusto.
Sí, sí, sí.
Carl, yo estaba viendo que también eres actor. Yo quería saber si nos podías compartir también un poco más sobre esta faceta, porque estoy viendo que eres actor y también tienes como temas de música. Y entonces, ¿cómo es llevar esa vida entre diferentes temas de cultura? ¿Qué tal es?
I'm gonna, okay, I think I got that question. Pero, let me know if I didn't answer it at all.
Well, I can make it in English, no worries. I see that you're...
It's hard for me to understand.
Okay. Okay, so you're an actor and you're also a writer and you write poetry, but you're also a director. So you have like a lot of things on cultural matters, and this is really nice. I just want to know, how do you manage your time to do it all? And that's awesome, I think.
Yeah. I know something like that. I got it for the most of it. Pero es que muchas de las cosas no pasan durante el mismo tiempo, right? Like cuando in my bio or what Julia was reading, like a lot of the stuff where it says, oh, he was a rapper, he shared the stage with Chance the Rapper and Mac Miller, rest in peace, and all these people. You know, I was 20, 22, 20, 21, 22, 23. And I haven't really been performing since then, but you know, it's like everything else on our resume. If you do it, you do it, you know, you can't take it away because you grew up or something like that. Like your experience is your experience, you know? So that performance of writing music and writing raps and performing that found its way into my theater, got me interested in performing Shakespeare, you know? And so that was connected to each other. And then that got me interested in directing plays that had poetry and verse and rap in it, because I know what to do with it. You know, like there's a lot of people who went to school for directing and all that stuff, but you know, there's only so many people who know what to do with rap on the stage. And I'm one of those people, you know? So things like Hamilton and In the Heights, the work of Lin-Manuel Miranda, those things that interest me because, you know, they're in verse too, you know? And they're kind of a part of the Puerto Rican canon now, I guess, you know, of creating in theater and verse, you know. So what I say is that there's seasons. So right now, not too long ago, I hurt myself. And so I'm on a boot right now and I haven't been walking for about a month. So I've been writing a lot of poems, you know, and not auditioning at all for anything. So sometimes life happens in weird ways and you don't know, and then you end up writing a book because you got hurt or something like that. But I like being an artist full time, not having a boss like that. It's kind of tight. Thank you, Catherine.
Gracias, Carl. Y bueno, él mencionaba que él ama ser artista a tiempo completo y a mí me gustaría saber cuántos de la audiencia son artistas a tiempo completo, a qué se dedican y cuál es su pasión, qué parte de la música o la poesía es lo que realmente les llama más a ustedes. Y bueno, una invitación nuevamente para que ustedes compartan sus versos aquí. Todo lo que se dice aquí queda aquí entre nosotros.
Sí.
Bueno, si ese no es el caso, yo voy a leer otra poesía, si me lo permites, Carl, y la audiencia. Este sí es un poquito más como romanticón, como lo dicen los panameños. Así que voy a tratar de hacer lo mejor de mí para ver qué tal sale. Ahí les va. Se llama Si tu corazón te pide, por Bertalicia Peralta, poeta panameña. Si tu corazón te pide el ropaje del amor, nada puedes hacer para engañarle. No hay manto de avaricia que sea capaz de hartarle, ni halago hipócrita que le reprima ni suficiente oro en el mundo para comprarle apaciguamiento. Lo que vale a tu corazón ansioso es solo la compañía piadosa cálida, del trabajo compartido, del alimento para las largas horas de vigilia, del susurro tiernísimo de los dedos sobre la espalda y siempre y sobre todo, los ojos límpidos y confortables, nido de ave en celo, de ángel ciego del canto, liberador. Gracias.
Well read. Good word. Y Gabriel, ¿quiere leer ese poema de Sofía Valdés?
Oh, estoy viendo que Gabriel está enviando un poema, pero quiere como participar, así que, ya le dieron el permiso. Gabriel, adelante.
Try it again, Gabriel. Because sometimes they have to control your mic, so.
Ok, Gabriel dice que su micrófono no está funcionando. Bueno, yo lo puedo leer si no hay problema, él lo escribió aquí en el chat. Es sobre Sofía Valdés, Amsterdam, versión española, o sea que también hay una versión en inglés. Dice así: manejando, siento el sudor en tus manos, mientes y me haces daño, es un ciclo sin fin. Son las 11, pronto se acaba la noche, donde tus miedos se esconden, no me mires así. Cada paso que doy duele y así no se puede. No te quedarás, yo no tengo más que dar. Veo tus ojos, con tus palabras me ahogo, siempre amarrada a promesas que ni tú te las crees. Y me tratas como una amiga cualquiera. A ella la llenas de perlas, no me quieres perder. Convivencias que a ti te tienen a ciegas y no la quieres a ella, solo quieres lo que te puede dar. Cada paso que doy duele, así no se puede. No te quedarás, yo no tengo más que dar. Gracias, Gabriel, por este verso.
Nice. I'll have to look up their work. Sofía Valdés. Check them out. I'm sure that comes in New York. Nice. Nice. Thanks, Gabriel, for sharing that. Absolutely. Y Jacqueline, Erika, están con nosotros. Si quieren compartir con nosotros una poesía. Okay, bueno, puedo leer otro poema también. para nosotros. Pero este poema no es de, no es sobre Puerto Rico. Escribí este poema durante la pandemia, durante un tiempo muy difícil. Pero se llama Portrait as a Beach I Want to Walk in Until I Am Always Lost. Tomorrow, I hear the sudden hush of empty. Tomorrow, I digest over a steaming cup of tomorrow. I'm not ready, but cannot wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow, I've been watching my moves lately, but don't watch me, watch tomorrow. I'll shower tomorrow. Tomorrow found me asleep in my long day. Tomorrow picked me up and washed my face in a fountain of May. I saw myself fresh greens and washed. Tomorrow I sun. Tomorrow suns me all the time, and I'm used to that because tomorrow raised me. Tomorrow raised me right down the street from a melted winter. Tomorrow brings lunch when I'm not ready for any advice. Tomorrow tatted on my face. Walk New York to the train. If tomorrow comes for me in the middle of the night, wake my sleepy ass up and pray for me. For tomorrow, I might take a light out of myself. Tomorrow is long will. Morning eyes see tomorrow. Tomorrow, I spring and spin marigolds. Kiss after perreo. I enter as passionate coal and invite a brass song. A fire lights my feet. I part from dark, doubt all script and direction, and tomorrow swells. Tomorrow, I remind. Call me tomorrow. Thank you. Appreciate you. And that's just the newer poem that's not from the book, but hopefully it'll be in the book soon. Okay. Thank you. I think are we done here, Julia?
Almost. So, quisiera hacerte una pregunta con respecto a cómo consideras tú, si crees que el poeta evoluciona al momento de escribir, si el poético ha cambiado a lo largo de los años. Carl?
Could you repeat the question in English for me?
Yes. Do you think, like, as a poet, your writing has evolved? Do you think, like, the language poetry, I don't know if that's the correct way to say it, has changed among the years?
Yeah. I think it's gotten better. I hope, because we grew up. But I think you find more ways to play. Like, in poetry, I think a misconception sometimes is that people think that poets just like are in a corner and we just think and then a poem comes. But to be real, like, poetry comes from research. It comes from digging. It comes from looking up words and looking up stories and lately, like, even in the last poem that I just read, like, the title, which is Portrait as a Beach I Want to Walk in Until I'm Always Lost. I don't know if you know who Sesh is. He's a reggaetonero, but like, I took one of his lines and translated it into English, and then that became the title of my poem. But because Spanish and English doesn't translate really perfectly, it makes for a cool poetic kind of syntax and language. And I think that's fascinating and dope. And it's also me, right? I am that, right? I am the Spanish translated weirdly into English, English translated weird. That's me as a person. So if my poetry can reflect that and the process can reflect that, I think that's important. But when I first started writing poems, I was just like, I love you, or my dad left me, you know what I mean? Like, mind you, I still write those poems, but like they're just changed in how I do it, in my vocabulary. I start a class next week, so I'm still learning to this day. And I'll learn until I die.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Okay, there is another question in the chat box. Do you think poets with huge social reach should use their influence to evoke or suggest libertarian, careless behaviors? I feel like some reggaeton singers don't care.
Suggest. I would evoke and suggest not having destructive, crazy, libertarian, careless behaviors, I'm assuming. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I hope, I don't like to give the responsibility to nobody who's not me. I have that responsibility because I'm a frippin' superhero, you know what I mean? Like, and I gotta save the world. But I don't put that on nobody else, you know what I mean? It's nice when when the people I look up to, like a Jay-Z or a Bad Bunny, takes a stand, and, what Bad Bunny has done for the conversations around homophobia within our Latino community, I think has been crazy big, Like, even if it's just painting your nails, like it's this idea of just like, of those conversations getting started, Do I think that they have, I would hope so. I hope that they use their platform for good. But in capitalism, there is not always a good line between people who have influence, money, and power and the good things you do. It's just not. So like, I don't necessarily expect my superhero to come from like somebody who's like that many followers, millions of followers, right? I'll probably be my superhero on the street, They'll save my life in some way. But I hear you though. I think that they should. But at the same time, it's like, not everybody's a good teacher, and not everybody's a good role model. And I'd rather have them tell us that they're not a good role model than to pretend to be a good role model and not be, because that'll break a lot of hearts, But I agree. I'm somebody who likes to, influence young people myself and try to mentor them in their life. That's outside of my art, I'm not a mentor because I'm a poet. I'm a mentor because that's how God made me. I like to be friend. I like to look up at and look down, like the people who I need to help up and the people who are going to help me up. But that's not everybody. And just because you're an artist doesn't mean you're a good person or even know what to do with that attention,
Yes, I completely agree. I have a question because, as I told you, I used to write, for example, when I was little, I like tried to be an artist because I think that we all have like that wish or that desire. But when you grow up, you find out it's not that easy to be an artist, and you need a lot of support and from your family, from your friends. And since you are growing up, you tend like to forget about that and focus on other things. So I decided to be a journalist. But hearing your poems, your poetry, it's really nice, and I will really like to start doing that and taking that back. And I want to know how, for example, do your poems develop? For example, like what is like since you a line that caught your attention and then you start like, this is gonna be a poem. So maybe I guess that sometimes you're like in the car or just taking a shower and then like a word pop up in your mind and then you're like, okay, you start like singing or writing. And I want to know how it is all the process since you start, like you sit on a table, you have a draft, then you make a rework, I guess. And then I know there's a lot of stages, and I really want to know how like to start, or for anyone who's here in the room who wants to start writing poetry or to write songs, and how is that, all the steps?
Yes. Okay. There's multiple parts to that question, so let me know if I miss anything. Okay. But for me, that answering that question is what life has been like being an artist. You know, we don't have the answer to that question. It's that I'm trying to find the answer to that question actively every day. And that's what makes me an artist. I may never find out the answers to those questions sometimes, you know, because the poems, they'll change how they come out. Sometimes it does feel real magical. And sometimes it feels like a paper that you're writing. Like, for example, in the book Catch a Glow, if you do read it or you see it, the way that the poems look like, for example, there's a poem that I use. Basically, one answer to the question is take classes. I didn't major in creative writing. I majored in theater. I work, I write, I've written rhymes. I've done a lot of that independently outside of school. So the MFA, I'm not necessarily like fanning about or thinking that I'm missing a lot of that, because I take classes and do my own work all the time. And taking those poetry workshops will put you in those spaces with other poets like a class would. And, you know, in those spaces, they read your poem and then they put you on mute so that you can't talk about your poem. And you just have to hear what other people think about your poem and what makes sense and what they don't get. And all of that makes you a better poet, because at the end of the day, you're writing for them. You're writing for people to read, you know? And so you want to know where you're confusing. You want to know where you're beautiful and where your meter is on point, you know? One of the assignments was a poem the assignment was to use lines from the newspaper to create your poem. And so I took it another step and then made a poem completely out of headlines from newspapers from Hurricane Maria and around the time. And I literally went in a Google Doc and copied and pasted in the Google search every news article that I could find. And then from those words, I started copying and pasting and slowly like made a little poem based on those lines of poems, right? Other ones like Ofrenda, for example, I saw a photo in a newspaper of that story. And it wasn't the exact same story, but they showed like a floodlight and how the community was gathering around the floodlight, almost like a fire. And I thought that was a poem. And so I thought it was my job to make it a poem because nobody else was going to, you know? And so I did. And now that poem lives here, even though you never read that news article, you know? I also remember that poems are all around me. And I always say that writing poems doesn't make you a poet. It's seeing the world as poetry that makes you a poet. And I know that sounds deep or whatever, but like, if you can see like a dog with 3 legs crossing the street and see a poem, or think about your uncle, okay, now that's, your mind is there, right? You're connecting image to yourself and your life. You know what I'm saying? Or I can see that picture of the floodlight and write this whole poem, right? Or I can, one time a friend told me they loved me on accident and they didn't mean to. And I thought that was a poem, you know what I mean? And I wrote a poem about somebody saying they love you on accident, you know? And what that means. And why is that bad, you know, and all these things. The life, you know, sometimes it's gonna be how you, I wrote a poem the other day about how I repot my plants. You see, like, I know you can't see, but I got mad plants in the background. I wrote a poem about how I repot my plants. And it was really about an ex-lover, right? So like, you never know. You start writing a poem about something, and then before you know it, your real stuff gets in there little by little. You start talking about the real life, you know? So like, that's the long story to tell you that there are so many different ways, right? But I will say that all of the ways are active. Poets are active. They're not passive. And I think that's the biggest misconception about poetry, is that we're these passive, chill, and it comes to us type of people. And I think we're the opposite. I think we're relentless, we're forceful, we're shit talking, we're shit starting, you know what I mean? Like we're Langston Hughes, you know what I mean? We're verses in the Bible, you know, we're verses in our Constitution, we're everything, you know, there are poems everywhere, you know what I mean? We're your favorite reggaeton song, you know what I mean? We're everywhere, you know? And all of those inspirations are around us too. So my last advice would always be read, 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 and listen. You should always be taking 3 times as much art as you put out. So if your tank isn't full, you know, if you're not reading 3 poems, how do you expect to write 1 poem? You know, like how? How do you do that? You know what I mean? Like, it's just hard, you know, you're making it hard for yourself. So read the poems, and I think that that'll open your mind to what is being done and what you do that's special and unique, and then you can lean into those more, you know. I'm seeing these, and thank you for that. And I'm seeing some of these poems, these questions in here, but I don't find writing easy. I don't. It's work. And that's why when I say I'm a writer, like I kind of say it with some pride, because I think it is work. I wrote a play during the pandemic with not a poem, and that was mad hard. Mad hard. It was about 60 pages. So it's like, that was hard. It was so hard, you know? But it was a new experience, and I did it, you know? I always say like writing can be like climbing a mountain. And at first it's like, oh my God. And then you're halfway up, and then you're looking back like, should I go back? Maybe I can go back to the beginning and then it's not too late. And then you get to the top and you get over that hump and you're on your way back down and things aren't so bad anymore. But now at that point, you start thinking like, it sucks. Everything sucks. Everything I do sucks. And then by the time you get down to the bottom of the mountain, it's okay because you rode it, and none of that else mattered. It didn't. All that matters is that you got it. You got the play, you know, you got the poem, you got the book of poems, you know, and nobody can take that away from you ever. You know, I'm excited. My grandkids will read this book, hopefully, and think how cool their G-Pops was, you know, at least I hope, you know, and other poems too. And
You know, now that you're talking about writing your book, I want to know, like, how did publishing your first book change, like, on your process of writing? I guess it takes like a lot of reviews and a lot of stress because you're not gonna be a published author. So I want to know how this process changed, like your writing, if it changed or is it still the same? Because
yeah,
you published your first book, yeah.
I think it's the same. I think when I first started, I was like, my first book of poems, like I had waited so long in my career. I felt like, because it feels like I waited a long time in my career. So a lot of my peers already had their first chapbooks and stuff. But I think it was, I'm sorry, I blanked. Can you remind me what the question was one more time?
Yes, sorry. I was actually thinking about how did publishing your first book change your process of writing, maybe, or it still remains the same. I don't know how many years have been passed since you published your first book.
No, and you know what? It's only like 10 people in here, so I'm gonna be super honest. We're not recording this neither, right?
No?
So like the publishing world is mad white in America, like super, super white, you know? Much like the recording industry world, the publishing world, Broadway, all of the major art forms, the dance world, ballet, all of the major art forms are institutionally white, right? So instantly, when you're getting your work, especially sometimes from Latinx folks, poets, we're giving, and sometimes we're writing in our language too. We're writing and mixing up of our language. We're writing to somebody who is not the ear. They're like the people who usually are reading our submissions for our books. They're not the ears that we're writing for, you know? And so a lot of the times they're missed, and it's missed on that. That's one thing. Personally, I'm a rebellious kind of dude, as much poets are. And this book being all about Hurricane Maria, it was like I made it it was a goal, you know, like I wrote one poem and then I was I'm gonna write this collection about this, you know. So it was a goal, and it was rooted in activism, you know, it was rooted in support, you know, not in like trying to get money. So even for me and all my pre-sales, like I donated all those to like the Maria Fund in particular. The book was like during the summer and during all those times of like Trump becoming to be the new president and the world was going to shit, and he's throwing the paper towels in the crowd in Puerto Rico, and I'm like so frustrated that there's nothing I can do. Like I can't even vote, you know, because like that didn't work, you know? And so I'm like, what can I do, you know? And then there's the power is out and you can't even call over there, you know? And so this feeling of being powerless, which to me was a metaphor of the same kind of blackouts that was happening in Puerto Rico, this idea of being powerless felt so important that I wanted to stand by that image, no matter what the publisher said about what I wanted to let out, you know? Needless to say, I got plenty of rejections. In fact, on average, I get rejected about 85, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, like pretty substantial rejection count in the world of poetry and submitting your work and publishing. But like
yeah, and how did you did like to manage rejection? Because in order, for example, I could write a book and I'm so excited, and then I got rejected. I feel like I could start crying. But how do you manage that as an artist? Because you have to be like really strong and to keep going and to have okay, this I can some critics you can take it and you can get better with yourself. But how do you manage rejection as an artist? Because that's really tough.
I have like, okay, I always say that with one of my friends when we would do auditions for like TV and film, we want to get 100 no's, like 100 no's, right? Rejections, because then you can take those 100 rejections and you can cash them in for one acceptance, right? One acceptance. And what the metaphor there was for me was that is the business. The business is rejection, you know? And if you don't understand that in the beginning, then it's not the business for you, because there's already too much, you're already coming in with way too much ego, you know? Most artists do, and that's why they don't last, you know? There's gotta be a sense of humility in that regard, where your work is not for everyone, and that's okay. You know, sometimes it's not the right time for your work, and that's okay. You know, it's the first draft, and that draft may see a publication in 3 years, you know, but it takes 3 years. And it's not like you're only doing that for 3 years. You're living life and doing other cool stuff, but it kind of takes that time. You know, books are slow to move. It takes about a year for you to even know the book exists. You know what I mean? Like it takes you about 2 years to read it after you bought the book. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, imagine how long it takes in the publishing industry. It's not like music where every Friday it's like new music, new music, new music. You can't get enough, you know? It's kind of the opposite. But I think of it like that, you know, we have a resume, right? And our resume is filled with our work experience. And then there's an invisible artist resume, right? It's on the side. And on that resume, it says everything that we got rejected from, right? Mine is long, you know? And that nobody can take that away from you, you know? Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to two resumes looking equal, and they look at, well, what about the invisible resume? And I'm like, oh, right? All of these like rejections, they're like, oh, you must know something from that rejection. You must know something about your craft. You must have learned something from that rejection, you know? And those thoughts, you have to program. Like I said, I'm an actor for TV and film. I get rejected. I've only got accepted 4 times, right? Everything else has been rejection, right? So it's a complete, you have to submit.
Yes, yes. Yes, exactly. And in one point you mentioned and you talk about ego. Do you think, for example, that does a big ego help or hurt writers or actors?
Hurt.
It hurts.
It hurts everyone. It hurts football players, basketball. It hurts moms, dads, pastors. It hurts everyone. 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 All of the great people in life, right? You think about like people like Buddha and Jesus, right? Their claims to fame are humility, you know? That they were down to sacrifice, that they were down to give up like themselves. They were down to go through it so you didn't have to, you know? That makes beautiful work. That makes good people, and good people make beautiful work. You know, there are some bad people who make beautiful work too. I'm not gonna lie, right? The devil was a musician, you know, but like, there's way more good people that make beautiful work, in my opinion. So I don't know. In that regard, I would say it's good to not have an ego. You're gonna have an ego, but that's like, you know, it took me a while to figure that out too, but our ego is literally just the other thing that we're growing up with. At one point, it's like, you almost have to take care of it. It's gonna get you in trouble, in real adult trouble, right? Like, I'm a grown man, I'm 31, I can't get into no fight on the street. You know? No matter how ego bruised my ego is, because I'm a grown man. I'm a teacher, teaching artist, you know what I mean? Like, what do I look like fighting in the street because somebody called me a name or something, you know? It's like I can't, you know. It's a human thing more than a poetry thing, right? And some people we're all still learning how to deal with our egos and our humility. You know?
Thank you, Carl. That was very interesting. We're running now out of time. I think we should use these last minutes if you want to share a last poem with us, and then just invite the guests to come to your workshop on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. Let's see. Another poem. Okay. This is a new poem. Not a lot of people have heard, so it's a nice place to give it to you. And it's not in the book Catch a Glow, but it is very much in the world of it a little bit. But I wrote it after the fact, maybe as like a response. You heard the poem earlier that was like making the president look bad, right? About like leaving the hotel that FEMA was paying for on Friday. This poem is like a response poem in the opposite, right? So in the other one, I was critiquing the president a lot, who was a pretty shitty president. Sorry for my language. But I was like, yo, what if Puerto Ricans is in the White House? And so this poem is called Puerto Ricans in the White House. On day one, the first Puerto Rican family breaks wave, migrating the White House lawn, sworn back into a Sunday where drive, when they would breeze down Lakeshore, and how parents reveal with pomp and stock the white houses. On day two, Air Force One, runways in San Juan with coquis on Seoul Air Force Ones. The passengers, a cabinet of homemade sazon, all applaud the land. On day three, major negotiations commence to support a complete secession from Goya. On day four, we are introduced to the first Steele, who doubles as a godfather, making sure the presidents of the future, who double as nieces, stay on the Zoom call until teacher releases. On day five, first Chihuahuas, Cosita and Pepe, were sent home for noise. Much protest. From living Bantam, for noise, much protest. They shake nervy from being close to Almighty, yet no way of saving anyone for noise. Much protest. They nervous all over the carpet for noise. Much protest. On day six, let us prepare for independence. Demand reparation. appeal to history by securing justice on day 7. Like how the CEO of the business just runs the company, but the company will always be the company. Business as usual. The business of country is logged in favors, and company is kept as is, but no longer have to wait in line for Bad Bunny tickets. No longer have to wait for power. No longer have to. Thank you. I appreciate you and everyone here for rocking with me throughout this time. I know it was a small group, but I think it was lovely to get this conversation going. And I would love to invite everyone in here to join me this Saturday at 11 a.m. in the morning to write more poetry with our workshop. So quiero anunciar que todos están invitados a acompañarme este sábado para nuestro taller de poesía a las 11 de la mañana para escribir más poesía. Vamos a leer un poco también, pero vamos a escribir I hope that we can share at the end as well. Yo, he said it's like Dinesh Smith. That's one of my best friends. It's funny you say that. Me and him went to undergrad together. We studied right next to each other. That's awesome you say that. He's so famous. How did my friend be so famous? I'll check out Richard Blanco though, for sure.
Muchísimas gracias, Carl, y gracias también a la audiencia que estuvo con nosotros por compartir sus poemas, por tener este espacio de poder ser nosotros y compartir lo que nos gusta en términos de letra, poesía y todo lo demás. Así que bueno, no se pierdan el taller de poesía que va a tener Carl el sábado. Y nada, muchísimas gracias otra vez por participar. Hasta la próxima.
Gracias. Gracias a todos.
De esta forma culmina la actividad Open Mic, la poesía, palabra hablada. Muchísimas gracias a los moderadores y al panelista. Esperamos que haya sido de su agrado. Recordamos a todos que pueden descargar el programa cultural y también no perderse las actividades restantes. No olviden visitar nuestro sitio web www.filpanama.org para ser parte de toda esta experiencia del FIL Panamá 2021. Muchas gracias y hasta pronto. Que tengan buenas tardes.
I'm walking